Hey everyone, I'm Marsha. Welcome back to my channel, and today I'm going to show you how to make an easy chicken pot pie. Now, I used to love chicken pot pies when I was younger, especially those individual frozen ones that you get from the grocery store. It was just something about the buttery crust and the chicken breast meat mixed with the vegetables and that creamy thick sauce that just screamed comfort food. So today I can't wait to show you how to make your own homemade chicken pot pie, and trust me y'all, it's a lot easier than you may think. So let's get started. Alright, so we're going to start things off with our rotisserie chicken. So this is the first tip that I have to make this recipe super easy. It's just to buy an already cooked rotisserie chicken from your local grocery store, and this one is a lemon pepper flavor, so I do recommend getting like a plain or lemon pepper or something that isn't heavy like a barbecue chicken, because those flavors will be a little bit too strong for your pot pie. So then I'm just going to go ahead and cut my chicken pieces and start to shred them. So I want to use pieces from all over the chicken, so the breast, the leg, the thighs, the wings, and I'm just going to go ahead and pull those pieces apart. I'm also going to peel the skin off because I don't want any skin in my pot pie. So just going to peel the skin off, and then I'm just going to start to shred the pieces. So you can use a fork, a knife, whichever is easier. Honestly, just using your hands to shred the pieces is probably the easiest. So that's what I eventually started doing, just because it was easier for me. But just shred them into, kind of strips or bite-sized pieces to use in your chicken pot pie. Once you have all of your chicken pulled apart, it'll look something like this, and then you just want to go ahead and set that to the side while you start making your sauce. So we're gonna make a basic roux that's made out of butter and flour. So you often see this used in some kind of sauce recipe. It's just a base to give you good flavor for whatever recipe that you're making. So I melted my butter in a large skillet, and then I added in some chopped onions. And so I'm gonna let these onions cook and simmer away in this butter so they can soften up and start to release some of their flavor. After a few minutes, I'm gonna go ahead and add in my minced garlic, and then I just wanna stir that around with the onions and let that cook for about another minute. Now it's time to add in our flour. So I have some all-purpose flour that I'm gonna just sprinkle in a little bit at a time, mix that with the butter and the onions, and your paste is gonna start to form. So you're gonna start to make your roux, and this is where you want to continue to stir just to make sure nothing sticks to your skillet. So I'm adding in the rest of my flour, and then I'm just stirring some more, and you'll quickly start to see that thicken up and form into a thick paste. So you want to let that flour cook off in the skillet for a little while before you add any liquid. So I want to let this flour cook and get a light golden brown color before I move to my next step. Alright, so now my flour and butter has been cooking for a while. It's time to add in my chicken broth. So I have 3 cups of chicken broth, but I'm only adding 1 cup at a time, so I can slowly add it in, pour it in, and stir it with that flour. And you'll quickly start to see the flour thicken up even more and form into a really thick paste. That is when you want to start to slowly add in more liquid. And just continue to stir away to smooth out any lumps from the flour. And just take your time with this. You want to take your time so you can have a nice smooth texture for your roux. So as I'm continuing to stir, I'm slowly adding in the rest of that chicken broth. So I'm gonna let this cook for a little while before I add in my milk. So you can either use milk or heavy cream, and this gives the roux a creamy texture and adds more flavor. So you'll often see this as an ingredient, but this is the base. So once you have this done, you have the perfect roux or base for your chicken pot pie. So we just want to let this cook for a little while and simmer before we add in anything else. Next is time to season. So I have some salt, some pepper, and some Italian seasoning, and this is what's going to season your chicken pot pie. So it's perfect to add at this time once you are making your sauce, so that way everything is going to get incorporated with that seasoning. Next, it's time to add in your frozen vegetables. So you can either get just a frozen pack of peas and carrots. I like to do a frozen pack of mixed vegetables just because I like a little bit of extra vegetables in mine. But I definitely recommend the frozen vegetables, and just mix that in with the roux and let that simmer for a little while. And you'll start to see your chicken pot pie come together pretty quickly. Next, it's time to add in our shredded chicken. So I'm gonna go ahead and add that in and slowly mix that with the rest of the ingredients. It's already gonna start to look and smell amazing. So you're gonna have to try to resist from taking a bite of it. But if you want to taste it at this point, just to see if you need to adjust your seasoning, you're more than welcome to. Some people like to add in like a chicken bouillon cube. I prefer not to because those usually are high in sodium. So the chicken broth that I'm adding in has enough salt and flavor and sodium in it, in my opinion, so it really doesn't need any extra. Plus we added a little bit in with our seasoning. So for me, it is perfect just like this. All right, now it's time to move to the fun part, our pie crust. So just grab you 2 pre-made pie crusts from your local grocery store. That is my second tip to make this chicken pot pie super easy. So very important, you want to leave your pie crust in the refrigerator until you need to use them. They thaw out really quickly and you need them to be cold in order to use them and kind of shape and form them the way you need to for this recipe. So keep them in the refrigerator until it's time to pull them out. Next, you want to roll your pie crust out. So as you see me doing here, I threw a little bit of flour on a cutting board and I'm just going to go ahead and begin to roll out my pie crust on the edges to stretch it out. Because I'm using 2 pie crusts, one for the crust and then one for a top layer, the bottom layer needs to be a little bit longer and stretched out so it can hang over the sides. But I'm stretching it out. I'm going to roll it on my rolling pin and then I'm going to add it to my pie dish. And the reason why I stretched it out, as you can see, is so it overlaps the pie dish just a little bit, because you need those extra edges. Number 1, so your chicken pot pie doesn't come out. But number 2, so you can seal it with the top crust that we're gonna add. So I have just enough to overlap on the sides. I'm just pressing the crust into the pie dish and I'm just gonna straighten it out and even it out. Now it's time to add our chicken pot pie filling to our crust. And as you can see, because I stretched out that crust, it keeps the chicken pot pie filling from over spilling either into your pie dish or into your oven. So very important to stretch out that crust, and then we can add a seal to it with the top crust. And if you can't fit all of your chicken pot pie filling into the dish, that's totally fine. Sometimes I can, sometimes I still have a little bit extra, but you don't want to overfill it. So just fill it to the top, and if you have a little bit extra, that's totally fine. So as you can see, I'm struggling to unroll my second pie crust, but that's also totally fine. You can just piece it back together if you need to, and then you can just roll it to make it smooth with your rolling pin. So as you can see, I'm just rolling it out to smooth it out, just like I did the first one. But this is more so just to really smooth it out. I'm not really trying to stretch it that much because I don't have to stretch it as much as I did the bottom layer. Next, it's time to go ahead and lay that on top, and then I'm going to connect the two. So I'm just going to pinch both the bottom and the top crust together just to form a seal. Once I have both the top and bottom layer pressed together to form a nice seal, then I'm gonna go back and just try to crimp both of them together just to kind of add a little decorative touch. So kind of hard to explain, but as you can see, I'm using my index finger to press up into the dough, and then I'm pressing the dough around my finger just to kind of add like a little curl or a crimp to the pie crust. Once that is done, it's time to move on to my egg wash. So this is also very important. I just have 1 beaten egg mixed with a little bit of water, and I'm just gonna go ahead and brush this egg wash over the top of my pie crust. So you don't want to skip this step, and I wanna brush it over everything. So the top and the edges, I'm going to just go ahead and give it a nice layer of that egg wash. Once that is done, you want to cut a few slits into the top of your pie crust. So I totally forgot to do this on camera. So I actually did it off camera, but definitely make sure you cut a couple of slits into that pie crust before it goes into the oven. And you want to cook this at 375 degrees for about 40 to 45 minutes. Once your chicken pot pie is done, your kitchen will smell amazing and you'll have a nice golden brown color on the top of your pie crust. Very important to let your pot pie rest. So you want to let your chicken pot pie rest for between 15 to 30 minutes before you cut into it. But this is how you make a really easy and simple homemade chicken pot pie. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave me a big thumbs up down below. And as always, if you would like to see more simple and easy recipes just like this one, then make sure you also hit that subscribe button down below along with the bell so you never miss when I upload my next video. Until next time, friends, I'll see you later.